Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of The Dialogue by Harnham. Remember, firstly, this is a live session, so we'll be taking questions throughout, and please feel free to drop those in the feed and then we can answer them as we're speaking. For those of you that don't know us, we are the global leaders in data and analytics recruitment. To give you a quick intro into myself, I'm one of the senior managers here at Harnham, but also lead our diversity committee. Now, we're quite committed to encouraging diversity within Harnham and also within the data industry, and part of that is nurturing talent as well. We've formed a number of interesting partnerships, including one we're here to talk to you about today. So I'm delighted to be joined by Rebecca McKelvey, who is the CEO of In2ScienceUK. Welcome, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely to be here with you today, Kirsty.
Yes, I'm really excited about this partnership. So I think it'd be a really good way to kick off. And I guess if you could just tell everybody else about Into Science and I guess a bit about what you do as well, that'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder of the charity Interscience UK, and our mission is to promote social mobility and diversity in science, technology, engineering and maths. And we've been working for around 10 years now, and we operate across England. The way in which we fulfill our mission is by working with young people from really disadvantaged backgrounds. So the young people we work with will either be free school meal recipients, so they'll have a combined family income of less than £7,400, or they'll be the first in their family to go to university. So we work with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and what we do is we use the excitement and the inspiration of science, technology, engineering and maths to really give those students and those young people an amazing insight into STEM and all of the amazing careers that they can progress to. Because we know that STEM careers, you can earn a lot of money, and actually, if you're from a disadvantaged background, then having a really good salary and becoming more economically stable is absolutely key. So that's what the charity does.
Brilliant. I think that's amazing. And I guess the next kind of question that I'd have based off of that is kind of what barriers do you think prevent young people from disadvantaged backgrounds accessing careers in STEM and I guess data analytics as well?
Yeah, and I think yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that actually the barrier is really simple, and I think there's a really simple solution to it. And I think it's about knowledge. So you can only aspire to be what you can see. So when we ask young people, what do you want to be? They will say, I want to be a doctor, a dentist, or a nurse, because they are the only people that they get to meet. So if you're from a low income background, then you might have parents who don't hold professional careers. And so where are you going to get that information and guidance on careers if you can't see it? And I think that is the major barrier, and that's what Interscience really does. We pair young people up with people from across the STEM sector and really give them an insight into careers. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about our partnership is because we really need to do more about digital careers. One of the things, as a former teacher, so I used to work as a science teacher in East London, and I really, teachers do an amazing job, and they've got a huge number of things they have to do. And I just think that careers education is a step too far, actually. And I think that it's people like Harnham and the people that all your clients, the people that you work with, who could be the key to really highlighting the amazing careers that are available to these young people. And that's what we're finding. We're finding that the young people we work with are seriously bright. It's just that they don't know what's out there, and actually simply giving them an insight into what they can do, it is really having an impact.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess that kind of, it definitely hits the nail on the head there. And that I think when I think back to when I was actually at school, I was always told to go into IT, and IT was the thing to do. But actually, there's so much of a difference in terms of data analytics and I guess the variety of careers that people can get into, but they're just completely unaware of them, really. Is that something that you're seeing when you speak to people and I guess students?
And that's the thing we're finding. And I think at the moment, particularly with COVID, the way in which a young person is going to get any information is through their teachers. And they don't have access to teachers at the moment. But also a lot of teachers, they finish their degree and then go straight into teaching. So they've never had a real career in STEM. You know, they've done a STEM degree. And that's why people like people who are working at Harnham and your clients are the perfect people to give back, to those young people, and the variety of digital skills that are available to them, because the labour force is changing very, very quickly, and I think that by giving up-to-date information to young people who don't usually go into those careers is really key.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely, and I 100% agree with you in that. And I guess, what do you feel like the impacts that this has? I guess, how do you feel like this has an impact on the industry in terms of people from disadvantaged backgrounds not actually being able to have access to these careers?
Yeah, I think it's having a really negative impact, and it's an impact that we can really see. So I think when people think about diversity in a workplace, I think some people just think, oh, it's a nice fluffy thing, it's a tick box, but actually it can impact lives, it can impact products, and it can impact your revenue. And there are so many examples of this. Examples include sort of video conferencing. There was a video conferencing product that was produced, and it couldn't detect dark skin. So when you're on a video conference, you just couldn't see that person.
Wow.
So therefore, that product was just not fit for use, and that company isn't ever going to have a good revenue. It's going to impact that. And other examples like if you have engineers and they're all sort of male Caucasians, that product is not going to be fit for women, and things like that, with seatbelts that we've seen. And also there's the issue of data diversity. Having data, diverse data feed into products is really important, whether they be dating apps, whether they be medical apps, whether they be clinical drugs. You need data in diversity. And actually, again, if it's just white males producing this data, then it's not going to be diverse, and it's not going to be fit for purpose for our society.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely key.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think it's the example that you just gave about the video detection, not being able to detect somebody with darker skin, is absolutely ludicrous to me. I think it probably wouldn't bode very well for that company, so we won't probably mention them. But I think it's absolutely ludicrous that would be the case. And I guess just a quick reminder that if anybody does have any questions, please do pop them into the live feed, and then we can discuss them, and Rebecca and myself can have a good go at answering them. And just also another quick reminder is just to say that our topic today is diversity and getting diversity and I guess young people into STEM subjects. So I guess the kind of next thing that I'd be interested in going on to is that we mentioned awareness with students, and I think this is probably something we haven't maybe discussed before, but what do you think would be the best ways to, I guess, increase awareness to students and young people that have studied STEM?
I think we need to really increase the pipeline. So I think starting at university is too late, because you've already lost a lot of young people to the STEM sector. So I think you've got to start young. And I think that having done a lot of focus groups with our young people as to what they want and what they need, it's relationship, it's those professional relationships. It's about meeting people like you, and I'm sure many of your clients, that is the inspiration. So through our work, we place people into work placements. And I always used to think that it's going to be the research or the actual work they love. And it never is. It's always that person. They're like, oh, I just want to be like him, or I just want to be like her. And, that's lovely. And it is, I think, about connecting people. So I think having initiatives where you engage young people and you invite them into your workplace. I think that initiatives where you go into schools, it's a lot less impactful and a lot less engaging. And I think bringing people into your workplace and showing people that actually this myth about STEM professionals all being geniuses, we're not. We're just very driven and we're very passionate, but we're not geniuses. And I think that's something that the Interscience programme has really done really well. And one of the impact reports that I'm most proud of is that young people after the programme are significantly likely to feel that people that work in STEM are like them. And that's what we need. We need to really show that working in STEM it's fantastic, it's inspiring, and anyone can come and do it as long as you've got the passion for it.
100%. I definitely agree with you. It's so fascinating and interesting for me to hear that, because I think even obviously being an adult now and maybe not necessarily a student, I can definitely relate to that on so many different levels. And I think when we speak to candidates, even that are experienced professionals, they tend to connect with, for example, a manager that they're interviewing if they can feel some sort of familiarity, and whether that be coming from a similar background, which can also work to its detriment, is going to be one of those things. So I definitely think that's something that we'll probably want to encourage with some of our clients moving forward, to be able to connect with individuals, to be able to nurture talent. And I think it's quite interesting that I guess you mentioned that, because we've seen from our diversity survey that women can make up for as little as 18% of the demographic in some areas. And in terms of racial diversity, people from African and Caribbean backgrounds can make up for as little as 3%, which is quite shocking in comparison to, I guess, what you'd expect. But it's particularly interesting because if those are the things that people are seeing, then how are we supposed to end this kind of never-ending cycle, really? It's pretty powerful when you put it like that.
Yeah. And I think that it's the work like what you're doing at Harnham. So instead of just, there's lots of things that people can do to address diversity. They can make different policies and things like that. But actually being, really particular, getting involved in a project and really adding that difference is really important. At Interscience, we have thousands and thousands of young people applying to us. But what we need is someone who's really good at employability skills and can really showcase those careers. And actually a partnership with you adds huge benefit for us. And it also enables you to reach thousands of young people. And I think that our collaboration will really make that difference to those young people, because it's not the grades. Sometimes there's this myth that people from disadvantaged backgrounds have lower grades. Some of them do because of the sort of education system that they're coming through, but huge numbers are so very bright, and actually they just need really good information and a bit of guidance on employability skills and how they make that connection. And I think that by interacting with you and gaining some support, they really grow their confidence, because a lot about interviews, that's really what you need.
No, 100% agreed. And it sounds really positive. We've got two questions actually here in our feed. The first one is from Asamani, and they wanted to know, what age do you engage with students at In2Science?
So we're very particular on the age that we engage with young people. So we engage with them when they're 17 years old. So in the UK, you have to stay in education till you're 18, and the year before that, so when you're in year 12, you just have to make lots and lots of decisions about what you're about to do next. So whether you're going to go for apply for an apprenticeship, university, or a job. So we reach them at that time to try and give them some support and knowledge just before they make those decisions. And because what we feel is really important is actually going into the workplace. When you're 17, you can actually get on a train and go into that workplace and spend some time there, whereas when you're a bit younger, it's a bit more difficult. And also because we're engaging sometimes in quite high level research, it means that young person will be able to access that. But what we do is we partner with other charities who work at a lot younger age, and so we have that pipeline of young people coming in. So 17.
Perfect, that's brilliant. Thanks, Rebecca, on that one. And then we have another question from Charlotte, and this one is, how important is increasing the visibility of role models and visible success leaders in STEM/data specialisms to encouraging people to pursue a career in these sectors?
Good question. So I think the research does show, actually, if you're working with someone who's a similar age to you or a similar ethnicity to you, that is extremely encouraging and supportive. However, at the moment in STEM, because there is a lack of diversity, that's very hard. And what we're finding is that when we are placing young people with volunteers, the impact is still there. And what we try to do is we try to work on sort of age a bit more. So we'll get younger people to who are closer in that journey to work with our people. So that's how we promote it. But yes, you're absolutely right. Having role models that are similar to you is the most effective sort of initiatives and interventions.
Perfect. And I think it would be good for us to kind of look onto I think we might have touched on this, but it would be worth us going into it in a little bit more detail. I mean, what do you feel like? Because I know, Rebecca, the breakdown of your alumni program is very female heavy. I think from some of the stats that you've mentioned. And what do you feel like from speaking to these candidates and students rather could encourage more female students to want to get into STEM?
So I think that there are a lot of young people interested in STEM. It is true that females are much more likely to be interested in biology, medicine, and sort of biomedics overall, and less with less particularly interested in stereotype. And I just think that we need to have more information for them about what exists. And I think that if they knew that this exists, then they'd be able to access it. And to really get an insight in these companies and in these organizations as to what digital really, really means. Because it's not coming from their parents, it's not coming from friends, and it's not really coming from teachers. You know, digital education in some schools isn't maybe as good as it could be. And also access to careers information at the moment, I think it's something that we really need to address. And so I always say, opening your door, bringing people in and really highlighting to women and people from underrepresented backgrounds, that is absolutely key to anything that you do. And you can really inspire so many people by doing that.
Perfect. And so potentially for, I guess, any clients that might be listening to this, maybe running some sort of workshops to, I guess, educate young women and I guess as well young, more racially diverse professionals to actually what they do day to day and things like that.
That's exactly what we need. Yes, exactly. So we work with thousands of young people, and we also have a monthly newsletter, and we run workshops and skills days and things like that. And we also have placements. So if there are organisations that really want to make the difference, then they can get in touch and we can work together. That would be brilliant. But looking forward to the partnership that we have with Harnham. I know that you're about to deliver some employability skills sessions for us. You're entering information into our newsletter about all the different careers available to them. And it's going to be really exciting in a year's time to reflect back on our partnership and look at what that did. So yeah, it's something that we're really excited about, both myself and the Interscience team and our trustees, about our ability to come and do that. And actually, it is very simple, but it's about putting your expertise together with ours to really make that difference.
Definitely. I think it will be an amazing partnership and we're really excited about it. Just a quick reminder to our audience as well, if you do have any questions, please go for it and pop it into the thread and we will do our best to answer them from either Rebecca or myself. And I guess the second question, because we spoke about kind of encouraging females and female students into kind of more into these backgrounds and invest into studying STEM. What do you think can be done to, I guess, inspire people from more racially diverse backgrounds in the first place into STEM?
Well, I think there's two things. I think there is definitely, I think, organisations and companies addressing some of the structural barriers that they have to encouraging people from ethnic diverse backgrounds from coming into their company and making that a really nurturing place to work. I think that's really key. Because I think, we are really lucky to work with brilliant young people. 75% of the students we work with are from Black, Asian and minority ethnicities. 25% of the young people we work with are from Black backgrounds, and their grades are brilliant. And I think actually it's about making sure that those companies are really wonderful places to work. But also in terms of advertising, I think there's been some recent research that shows that actually the way you advertise roles in a certain way, certain language and imagery, it's just not encouraging people from those backgrounds from applying.
Interesting. Okay.
And I just think that I suppose finally, just a comment on on graduates. I think what we're finding is that we have young people who are graduating from top universities with first-class degrees, and they're still not able to access some of these top-level jobs. And I think it really does speak to the information and the guidance that's out there for these people. And I think that people have to do a better job of trying to reach them and get information as to where to apply and how to apply. I mean, I know, for example, that Harnham are going to do some workshops for us that look at the recruitment process and the skills that you need. And actually, I think if companies did have a role and they really were serious about encouraging people from diverse backgrounds into applying for those roles, doing some workshops and providing some support. I know that's what Harnham does. I know that's what other organisations such as Teach First do, and Now Teach, trying to get people from diverse backgrounds into teaching. They provide a lot of sort of pre-interview support. They don't just expect people to turn up to that interview and be brilliant, because if you haven't got a parent or a friend supporting you on that, then you're not going to be successful.
Definitely. And so it sounds like the approach really needs to be from a number of angles, basically education of what careers there are there, looking at how companies are actually pitching these roles, and also just interview skills as well, which is obviously something that we're definitely keen to help out on.
Yeah, and I think sort of working together, I think that I'm hopeful that we can use this pilot to really evaluate it and, you know, look at good practice. What does good practice look like? And we can disseminate that throughout the industry.
Definitely. And I think, I always like to look at both sides of things. And I think there might be people out there thinking, you know, the industry is fine. I don't think there are loads of them. But what do you feel like would be the implications if these issues aren't addressed?
I think you know, I think that the implications potentially could be, you know, really quite devastating, both on the health of people. So if you look at the dating of people, if you're looking at dating algorithms and things like that. So I think that they could have far-reaching consequences across the population, many of which are quite, you know, very negative, whether that be on mental health, jobs and things like that. So I think that it's something that really needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed quite explicitly and proactively and quickly.
Definitely, I agree. And I think it's quite interesting on the potentially one of the points that you made earlier, in that, you know, if these things aren't really addressed, then naturally companies are going to maybe excluding parts of the population because they actually don't have those parts of the population as part of their workforce.
Exactly. Yeah.
Similarly, one of the things that we're seeing at the moment is that people from these, you know, underrepresented backgrounds in data are almost going to become kind of golden geeses, shall we say, which is not really, I guess, the desired outcome that anyone would want.
Yeah, and I think companies are really seeing that actually having a diverse workforce really does push innovation, because if you have people from the same backgrounds, they're going to come at problems from exactly the same angle. And I think that's being really recognised. But I think what companies are doing is they're being a bit short-sighted. You know, they're thinking, how can we, you know, as you say, how can we recruit that one person from that background we want? And actually they need to start young, you know, you need to start younger, and making sure that we have that pipeline. I think that's what we're doing together. So I think start younger, it really is key.
Definitely. I 100% agree. And I think, you know, some of the people that you guys do work with would obviously are actually quite early on in their careers. So getting them into actually understanding where they're going to be going and being able to see things long term, I think is really key for anybody in any profession, regardless of whether it's data or recruitment, shall we say. So it's particularly good for them to be able to see that longevity. We do have another question here from Edward. And this one is, do you have any advice on trying to inspire underrepresented young adults?
Yes, absolutely. And also you're about if you don't belong to these underrepresented groups, that's absolutely fine. So, you know, we will support hundreds and hundreds of young people from underrepresented backgrounds, and they are generally placed with, you know, sort of people from very affluent backgrounds that are white. That's absolutely fine, because you're giving opportunities, and I think that's key. A lot of people, they just don't have opportunities to shine, and actually by passing that baton down, and giving people opportunities to learn, and to be inspiring, I think that's only going to add sort of huge benefits to that person and giving them guidance. So I think that if you do want to make the difference, and inspire young people, then I think, as I mentioned, getting them into your workplace, giving them support and guidance is key. And you shouldn't worry about what background you're from. I think giving opportunities is just a wonderful thing to do.
Definitely. And I guess one thing as well, it just popped into my mind, but even things like mentoring programs potentially could be quite interesting, because they may never be able to be in a room with somebody, for example, like Edward or other professionals in that area. So just even being able to get things like their advice, or if they were in an interview, what would they be looking for, is going to be really key, I think.
Yeah, and that's, I think you're right. And so at Interscience, what we do is, as volunteers, so anyone working in a STEM company or as a researcher can sign up to our program, and we connect them with young people who need support, and we provide those STEM professionals mentor our young people, but we train those people, so the mentors. So we give them a mentoring framework. We explain sort of how to be really nurturing, some of the do's, some of the don'ts, and we support volunteers through that aspect of it. And what I would say, I suppose, to the previous question, is that our impact report, so we survey young people before, after, and a year on, and we have our data independently evaluated, and the impact is just fantastic. Young people know a wide range of careers that are available to them compared to previously. They feel more confident, they feel more resilient, and I think that they just feel that their careers are less scary, and they know a lot more about them. And so I think, getting involved with organisations that really work well with young people is, I think, a real key thing to do if you do want to make the difference. And I think that, just going back to sort of digital careers, I think it's changing frequently. It must be difficult even for you, Kirsty, to keep up with all the different things that are out there.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing to see. I think you probably even watch TV, or even some of the clients that we speak to. The technology changes, I would say, so rapidly, and I guess every year, and it's in everything that we're doing at the moment. So it's really exciting. I think it's just good to know actually what's out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, although, obviously we're in a COVID situation at the moment, and bringing people into your workplace is quite difficult this year. Every charity I know, including Interscience, we've all transformed our programs online, so you can still sort of give support to young people. But I think the top 3 tips are: get involved, do something, be explicit, engage your employees to do the same. I think the second thing is if you can, bring people in, and I think don't be frustrated. I think everyone, through my role, I've seen the power that individuals can have on their companies, and so I think making a small difference that can really grow and expand with time. And I think that you shouldn't underestimate the difference that individuals can make on other people's lives. Just having an hour's mentoring session with someone, giving them the top tips of on how to sit through an interview, that can change someone's life. It's access to information they never would have had, and they're just not, a lot of the young people we work with, they're just not given any support, because of their situation. So I think, don't underestimate just giving an hour of your time, because it can really make the difference.
Definitely. And I think you guys obviously do a summer program as well, don't you? In terms of the young people, and I guess potentially the mentors that you might be able to provide. So I guess if there's anybody out there that's interested in that, then definitely get in touch with Rebecca, because I think it would be amazing for young people that are actually at home and not able to actually get out and speak to people, for them to be able to connect with people in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, please get in touch. And also, if you've got any other sort of projects that you'd like to do, and that you're really excited about addressing this issue, and you're looking to work with young people, we're happy to discuss different things. But I don't know if there's any other questions from the audience.
I guess while we're waiting in terms of the questions, I mean, it'll be good for us to look at and move on to, I guess, your collaboration with us. I know we've been talking about it a little bit, but how do you think the work that we're doing at Harnham and I guess our collaboration is going to help? So
one of the things that we found at Interscience is that, and also just looking at the research, a low-income background and you get a first-class degree from a top university, you're significantly less likely to get a high-level job compared to a more affluent person that got a 2-2. It's a very, very sad statistic, but what it shows is that grades aren't everything, and I think that's what society's led to believe, that if you get good grades you'll get a good job. And actually we're not finding that. We're finding that actually if you don't get good grades, if you're from an affluent background, you'll still get a very good job. And that is what our partnership is going to hit. So we are going to provide bespoke support to very able young people into digital careers and give them the support that they deserve and that they need. We're going to boost their employability skills. We're going to give them, bespoke individual advice and support on their CV, on their interview skills, and really highlight some of the amazing careers that are out there for them, and that can actually support them to become, economically stable. And so it's a new venture for us. We haven't done this before, and I think it's really exciting.
Definitely, I think it's just, I guess, almost evening the kind of playing field as such. That's how I like to see it, because I think, when you think about these people, as you said, they might not have parents or anybody around them to be able to give them advice. Not saying that, their parents aren't doing their best, they can, but you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's really key here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that for Interscience, we are experts in teaching, and we're experts in volunteer management, but we're not experts in employability. And I think also I should mention that, I do feel very sorry for teachers at the moment. They're having to deal with a huge amount of pressure and stress, and they're doing a brilliant job in trying to raise the attainment of young people, because it is important. But actually, I really don't think that they're well placed to give the career support that someone like Harnham can give. And so by leveraging your passion and your skills to give back to young people who are in desperate need of that, I think it can only be a really positive thing.
Definitely, 100%. I agree. And I think, I know that, for example, the CV interview feedback that we're looking to do is going to be really interesting, because I think even when I think back to me being a graduate and looking for jobs, I had no idea until I think a recruiter actually sent me some interview preparation. And even then, I still kind of wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the heartache for us is that we have graduates with top degrees in STEM, and they're coming out and they're unemployed, and that is something that we need to address. And there's no sort of institution or organisation that we have in the UK to address that. And so I think that, the power of charities and companies to really address these issues, I think, is really compelling. And also, you're just so well placed to do that.
Definitely. I think, prior to finding yourselves, we obviously have the knowledge in terms of data and the clients and potentially even like the interview skills, prep and etc. But actually nurturing the market is really important. And it's a really important part for what we're going to see in, I think, years to come.
Yeah, and I think finally, I think making sure that you do you do evaluate initiatives. So, we'll be evaluating all of the workshops and skills days that you do with us. We'll be tracking our young people. We'll be getting feedback from them, because I think it's really important that at the end of support that you can see the impact we've made, and also how to refine it. And perhaps we could share some of those learnings with the sector.
Definitely. No, I think that's 100% going to be really useful, because I guess we do our diversity survey, but as part of that, could be looking obviously at the students that are actually coming into the industry as well. Oh, we've got another question here from Ed, who previously asked a question. In your experience, what are some of the most common questions you get asked by underrepresented young adults in the context of getting into STEM jobs?
The most frequently asked question is, how much do you earn? Of course. Yeah, so we've run quite a lot of career panels, and I think so that's one question they earn, and I think they're always astounded by how much you can earn in these jobs. It's money maybe that they didn't even foresee, so I think that's really encouraging. The second the second question that is always asked is, how do you get there? Because once they know that a job exists, the question is, well, then how do I become one of those? What path do I need to take? And I think that particularly with digital careers, I think that is something that we need to ask the sector to produce, because it is complicated, as we were just talking about. It's very complicated. I personally don't actually know, and so actually having a resource that outlines what are the pathways into those careers, I think is really key. In addition to that, they ask you about your daily routine. So, we've had some consultants say to us that they have to get up at 4 a.m. and they're out till, or back in the day, a couple of years ago, and that they're out till very late. And again, they're restricted by this 4 a.m. wake up call. So they ask a lot about sort of like your daily routine, if every day is different, how much you earn, and how did you get there. So yeah.
Okay.
Lovely.
And I think if we're looking at the industry, and I guess as a whole, because I think a lot of people are really interested in doing data initiatives and I guess collaborations with people like yourselves, and nurturing talent into the industry. How do you think that they can measure the impact of this? And I guess how do you guys measure it generally after every kind of step that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think Interscience is an impact-led organisation. We take it really seriously because there are initiatives out there, not necessarily in the education sector, but there have been initiatives that have actually done the opposite. And wouldn't it be bad if we were running a program that actually deterred everyone from doing STEM? And so I think impact is tremendously important. And what we do is we have compiled. So we do it in two ways. One is which we've compiled a survey of lots of different questions. So we ask about employability skills, we ask about science, something called science capital, we ask about confidence and things like that. And we surveyed all the young people before initiatives and after them to see the change, and then also a year on to see if that change has been sustained. And I think sort of high knowledge and confidence, two things that we really want to address, so that's really positive. The second thing we do for our programme is we send all of our data off to UCAS, the university application process. And so what they can do is they can look at our young people, and they can get control groups, because obviously if we let's say we're only taking young people who had really high grades, obviously they're going to do well. But what UCAS does is they match those controls for attainment, postcode, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, which again are very important, because if you're in London, the probability of you going to university is higher than if you're somewhere else in the country. And actually what the data has shown is that Interscience significantly impacts positively young people applying to university, applying for top universities, and getting into those universities. So that is really data that confirms what we're doing and that we're actually doing something positive and we're actually making the difference.
Definitely. And it's quite interesting actually, because I think a lot of people and young people probably think that people have to come from maybe a computing background or something potentially even AI focused to go into data analytics careers, or even I guess even just as a basic kind of data analyst. But actually it's really interesting to see that it's not necessarily the case at all. So an example of this, I was actually speaking to a client, I think about 2 days ago, and he is interested in anybody that isn't from a computing background. And just because I think one of his main points was that we're all at home at the moment, and it's really hard to, I guess, actually interact with one another, given the fact that we're all doing it electronically and on Zooms and Teams calls. And so his point was that actually he would be really interested in people from any type of background, whether they've been studying snow leopards or whether they have, I guess, maybe potentially studied a STEM subject, but not necessarily computing as such. And then done something quite different, because it really adds a lot of value to be able to actually bring something else to the table. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, a different point of view and perspective. So one thing I'd say to, I guess, the students that you guys work with is that it's not just computing at all, and that the industry, and we're seeing a lot of managers that we work with being very interested in people that aren't just from computing. So I wouldn't want any of the students that you work with to think that's a blocker at all.
Yeah. And just out of interest, so what qualifications would these people need to go into these careers?
So any mathematics is always a really interesting background. Stats as well, in particular. Those are the most, I would say, most common ones. But we do see people that, for example, wouldn't have maybe studied a STEM subject. Naturally, they are more interesting, I would say, for our clients, because they're going to be dealing with data. But I would say if they haven't done their first degree in a STEM subject, but maybe done their second one, then potentially even doing some sort of placement or volunteer work would be quite useful. Because it shows that you've got, I guess, a bit more of a commercial acumen when it actually comes to data, and being able to do some sort of, your research projects and being able to link that back to kind of the real world, and that why the data is important is really key. That's one of the things that we see, because even experienced analysts actually sometimes might just list technologies or data on their CV as to what they've worked with, but not actually how it ties in, and that's really important. So that's something we see a lot.
And you've triggered something that I've been thinking about a lot. So looking at internships are so important for people to get opportunities. But if there are unpaid internships, it means that huge numbers of people can't apply for that job. If you've got caring responsibilities, if you're a parent, or if you're from a low-income background, it totally blocks you from applying for that opportunity. And we all know how important those opportunities are. And so, another piece of advice I'd give to companies who want to improve diversity is ensure your internships are paid. And I think that, again, could really improve sort of diversity in companies. So Interscience is a small charity, and we have internships, but they're all paid internships. And I think that, I bet we'd all agree that interns do such an amazing job, and they can really add value to your organisation and what you're doing.
Definitely. And I think we've got another question from Charlotte. So what are the benefits of mentoring / training programs within STEM, and are they easily accessible for all young people?
So I think that I suppose there's different types of training. So you've got universities and you've got apprenticeships. So universities, obviously, it's very traditional, and at some universities, they're not very career orientated. Sometimes you feel that actually that person knows everything about the history of that subject, and not about, they haven't maybe developed some of the key employability skills they should. And then you've also got apprenticeships. And last year, a shocking report came out from the Social Mobility Foundation that showed that the number of apprenticeships that are available to people have dropped drastically with the employer levy. And actually what they found is that not only did the number of apprenticeships drop, they actually really changed what they were. And instead of supporting young people coming out of education, they're actually just supporting people who are already professionals change their career course. And so again, apprenticeships are seen and could potentially be an amazing vehicle for social mobility for someone who's from a low-income background to train as part of, you know, a job, as opposed to going to university that is quite costly. But actually what we've seen is that apprenticeships, they're for people only who are older, and also that people from low-income backgrounds are even less likely to get onto these now, because they're being seen as really valued. So that's a real shame. In terms of sort of training programs to get into STEM. The NHS have some training programs that are really good, but again, they're really oversubscribed. And again, I think, you know, putting workshops on and supporting pre-applicants to try and level that playing field, I think, is a real sort of key initiative in what people should be doing to progress. Yeah.
And I think it's pretty interesting because actually, as you said, you're seeing some things that are actually kind of the lockdown that we're in being limiting people from, I guess, these backgrounds and maybe making them less accessible. But I think online mentoring obviously is something that you guys do a lot of, isn't it? As given the situation we're in.
Yeah, so Interscience, we transformed our program totally online, and so now we connect STEM professionals with young people online for mentoring. And because we have a wonderful online platform, all of the information that we'd usually give in person, it can all be stored on that platform. It's really engaging, it's really accessible, and I think that is something, you know, positive that's come out of a pandemic situation, is that we're really thinking about, right, how do we make information accessible and support accessible for people who can't physically be in a place. And so yes, hopefully many more people will be supported in this way.
Definitely. And actually one final question that's popped up in my mind, for any clients or professionals that did want to get involved in kind of nurturing this talent, how is it kind of, is there a central hub for these things to be documented, for it to be, I guess, maybe if somebody wanted to give a talk to the students, is there somewhere where it be stored where they could, I guess, potentially look back on it, replay it, and I guess reuse it, so it's hitting as many of the students that you guys work with as possible?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's exactly what we do. So all of the sessions are stored online, and that enables young people, if they're not free at that particular time, to come back and access it and to go back. And I think some of the workshops that are particularly successful are sort of top tips. So going back to a question I think that Edward asked, you know, we're always asked, if you could give your younger self five tips on getting to a great job, what would it be? And that's really, you know, excellent information, actually.
Definitely. And I think we've got one more question from Steph. And that is, how would you advise young people to search for work in STEM, especially in this virtual world? I guess, Rebecca, is any, I think I can definitely answer that question, but do you want to go with it first?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, you know, there is hope that there are actually more opportunities at the moment for people because everyone's going online. But my advice to anyone would be to email someone and give a very short and personalised email as to why you'd want an opportunity with that person. And if they don't respond in 5 working days, just give them a little nudge to say, oh, I just wondered if you saw my email and if there was any opportunities in your organisation. And so if it's that you want to have a look at research, then all of the email addresses of every researcher can be found online at a university. And a lot of sort of HR professionals are also, you can also find them on LinkedIn or again on their website. So it's all public available information. But I would send just a really short, professional, positive email to someone and ask them if you can't actually find a work experience opportunity by just Googling for them, or if you're not applicable for them. Kirsty?
I'd say that essentially LinkedIn is the world at the moment in terms of employability. So actually, I think it's a really good thing at the moment, because people are at home and they will have access to their emails and their LinkedIn a lot more than they might have usually when the world is open and we're able to do things. So I'd probably actually advise maybe, looking for opportunities on LinkedIn, but there's no harm in actually you approaching an organization, or I guess an individual, connecting with them on LinkedIn and just dropping them a message and saying, I find your organization really interesting. I'd be really keen to see how we can work together, or potentially how I could add some value. And I think opening the dialogue in that way is really proactive, and it's only going to show them, the kind of the manager or the organization that you want to work with, the kind of professional that you are. And I think making that first step is really important, and opening that dialogue. Then I guess once you have that conversation with them on the phone, or I guess even on a Teams call or a Zoom call, it's almost like you're creating that opportunity for yourself. And I think that's really going to be a really life-changing for some people. So I'd definitely say LinkedIn and networking where you can. There's also a lot of kind of LinkedIn networking kind of conferences and things that you can go to that are completely free to sign up to, in comparison to maybe how you do it normally. So yeah, I guess firstly, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really great discussing our partnership and how we're going to work together, and all the really exciting things that you guys are doing at In2Science. What I'd ask is, if anybody does have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Rebecca. We will definitely be able to come back to you, or you can even comment on the Harnham LinkedIn page, and we'll definitely do our best to actually come back to you. Just as a quick highlight, our salary survey for Harnham is actually live and in the comments. So if you have 10 minutes or so, it would be really excellent if you can complete that. That really helps us to also be able to measure diversity in the industry as it stands. And so would really give us a good scope of actually what the industry looks like, and actually as professionals, what you're really interested in. So that's all from us. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks a lot, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Kirsty.
Thanks.